The Boys is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and since season 4 is right around the corner, you guessed it, I'm gonna make a fan poster for it. Stay tuned. Now, making a poster for The Boys has been something which I wanted to do for quite some time now, since season 2 actually, but never really managed to wrap my hands on it until now. The closest thing to making a poster for The Boys has been when I made this artwork right here way back in 2020, which I mean is more of an artwork anyway rather than a poster, but I mean you get the point. Anyway, now that season 4 is a few weeks ahead of release, I finally decided to make a poster for it with this very cool concept idea that I had in mind for like a year, I think. I always wanted to turn that concept into reality, but eventually I just decided to wait out until we get a trailer for The Boys season 4, or at least a teaser or something, and oh boy, I am just glad I did wait out, because not only we got much more information about this season, but we also got a ton of great promotional material and some dope official posters, which obviously I can just take some inspiration from when it comes to making this poster. But anyway, with that being said, let's just go over a quick concept breakdown and finally get to making the poster. So in the middle, we're gonna have Homelander basically just shooting his laser beams, and coming out of his laser beams would be the boys, so like Butcher, Kimiko, Frenchie, and so on. As for the bottom, in my original concept, I wanted to add something Vote related, so like the Seven and the Vote Tower behind. But now seeing how most of the recent official posters are kind of leaning towards this sort of riot police fight, like how it's complete and utter chaos, I thought of implementing the two in my poster, and well, in my actual final design I would actually just end up combining both of these ideas together, which actually ended up turning pretty nice. But anyway, now that we're done with that, let's just get to finally making the poster. I first started by just gathering up most of the images that I needed for this poster, which then obviously I began cutting them out one after another. Now as for Mother's Milk and Frenchie, there just wasn't any decent images of them from season 4. And yeah, I know I said in the beginning that we had a ton of great promotional material and images for this season, and although that still was the case, it just wasn't for all of them, which in this case for Frenchie and Mother's Milk. Now here's the thing, at first, I thought of just adding an image of them from a previous season and just call it a day, but the reason why I didn't go with that approach is mostly because they just look so different in this new season. So eventually, I just decided to just replace their faces with a screenshot of their face from the trailer, which, I mean, at first I had a lot of doubts if it's even gonna work, but eventually I did manage to make it look somewhat nice enough. And to be fair, the results didn't even look that bad as long as you don't stare at them for too long. After that, I began by just laying out a quick composition which I was gonna go with, and this is funny because normally I don't do this. Like most of the time I just add one image which I then blend it in, and then I add another image which I then do the same thing, and so on. But for this one, since I already had a clear concept in mind, and also since there was quite a lot of great promotional material, I know I said this for like the 4th time now, I just decided to go with this approach. After I placed all the characters around, I worked a bit on the laser beam by just adding some effects from the blending options like some glow and so on, and after that I could finally start working on the actual real important stuff with these characters, like fixing the lighting, color correcting, adding shadows and highlights and so on. And to be fair, you've seen me do this process on my channel for like the millionth time now, so unless you're new to my channel, which in that case you should definitely subscribe, you don't really need to see this, so it's just gonna be a quick speed art segment. As for the colors, I decided to go with this sort of desaturated blue color, and if you haven't guessed it by now, the reason why I decided to go with that approach is obviously because all of the official posters have that same color palette, and so I just wanted to better match the whole vibe of the season that they're going with the colors and all of the confetti around, and that's also why you're gonna see me add a lot of confetti later on. Then I started by adding some confetti like I said before, and at first I only added some white confetti, but later on I would actually end up adding even more confetti in a wider variety of colors, so keep that in mind. Here I also tried to add some very vague buildings similar to these ones that we see in this official poster, and to be fair, this was kinda pointless because by the end you won't even notice these buildings, so I don't even know why I added them, but it adds for some nice detail and depth, so that's what matters, I guess. At this point I also decided to bring the logo all the way at the top. And man, I am just glad I did that because it literally felt like the logo belonged in there. It just made the whole thing a lot better, and not only that, but there was also more space in the bottom, which I could just add even more characters and stuff in there. After that, it was no better time than now to work on the bottom part of the poster, and well, that's exactly what I did. Now, concept-wise, I decided to go with something similar to what we see in this official poster. So there was gonna be the riot police behind, and in front, instead of Homelander, I was just gonna add the 7 or the 6, can never get the number right. I first started by just adding a ground, which I then could add the riot police and the 7. Now, I didn't really spend that much time working on the ground because I just knew later on I would just come back and work on it some more, so that's why. Now here's the thing, finding an even slightly similar image of the riot police to what we see in this official poster was difficult as hell. I searched hours upon hours but couldn't find anything until eventually I came across this gold gem from Unsplash. This was probably the best and closest image that I could find that looked similar to the riot police that we see in the official poster. Now the funny thing is that it wasn't even free, so I kinda just stole it. And yeah, I know the guy who took this picture could probably just sue me if he wanted to, but I mean, it's not like I'm actually earning any money through this, so I don't even think it would really matter. After I cut out the image, I duplicated it a few times to make a column like how we see in the official poster, and did the usual same thing to them like with everyone else. You know the drill, fixing the lighting, color correcting, and finally adding some shadows in the ground to make it feel like they're actually standing in there. After that, I started working on those paint splashes that you see in the riot police shields in the official poster. To do that, I basically just downloaded some splash brushes from Brusheezy, which I then started painting the paint splashes in their shields, and well, that actually did do the job. I also used a bit of blend-if to just make the paint feel more natural, and well, that's about it. Once I was done with the riot police, I started working on the background a bit, and well, for that I just decided to add some similar white stairs like how we see in the official poster. Now, I'm not really sure if it would have looked better if I just added some sort of city in the background or something like that, but I mean, this too didn't look bad, so I don't really think it matters as long as the results look great. Now it was finally time to add the second most exciting thing, the first being the boys, now finally the 7. Now luckily for me, I already found some ready to use PNG images for each member of the 7, so that just meant that I didn't have to spend eternity eternity cutting out these images. Then you guessed it, I did the exact same thing as I did with literally every character in this poster. I first started by just making them quite a lot darker, which I then started color correcting them by just making them a bit bluish. After that, I added their shadows on the ground, and well, this actually made the whole thing a lot better. And to put the cherry on top, I also added some highlights, and well, the results speak for themselves. I then also added some text on the poster, like the release date of the season and such, to just make it feel more professional, you know, like it's a legit movie poster even though it's just a fan-made one. Now, the ground felt a bit too bland and empty, especially compared to the official poster where there's just a ton of rocks, signs of protest, and debris just laying around. So, you know, I just knew I had to add some of that too. I first started by just adding some rocks here and there, which I then blended them in with the environment. After that, I added some texture on the ground, which actually vastly improved the whole thing. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't just find the exact same sign from the protest that you see laying around in the ground in the official poster, so I just had to create that on my own from scratch, which I mean, it wasn't that hard, so that's nice, I guess. This was just a matter of creating a new document layer, changing the background to red, writing the slogan like, you know, keep America safe, and finally just adding some stars and some stripes, and that's about it. After that, I saved the image and brought it down to my poster, which obviously I scaled it down and placed it accordingly. I then blended it in with the environment, and after that I also started working on the other protest sign, which was slightly folded. And I'm not gonna lie, this actually proved to be quite a challenge and took quite some time to get it right, but eventually I did make it work out. Finally, as the last thing, I also added some wooden debris laying around in the ground, and that just added for some nice detail. It was also at this point that I just realized that I almost forgot to add those smoke bombs that we see from this official poster, and well, that's exactly what I started doing, which was pretty straightforward. Now, as for adding the actual smoke coming out of the bombs, it actually wasn't as straightforward as I thought it would be. I first tried by just painting the smoke with some smoke brushes, but that just didn't really look that great. So I just ended up using an image of some smoke, which I masked it out using the channel separation method, and obviously added it into the poster, and I'm not gonna lie, this method proved to be quite a lot better than just painting the smoke with some smoke brushes. After that, the poster was pretty much finished, so as usual I just spent another hour just fine-tuning this whole thing and, you know, fixing small stuff. And lastly, I added the usual final little touches like adding particles and adding the camera raw filter, and well, here are the final results. I'm not gonna lie, I'm quite blown away with the results from this one. I mean, this is exactly the concept that I had in mind, so I am just glad this ended up turning exactly how I wanted. Now, another thing is that this whole poster just feels like a combination of all the official posters that we got, and I mean, that kinda was the case. I took some elements from each one of these official posters, and well, it just shows. Also, one more thing, if you hadn't noticed already, I added another row of the riot police in the back off screen. Don't ask me why, I just thought it's more fitting since there's also 4 rows of the riot police in the official poster, so that's why I went with that. But anyway, with that being said, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did and want to see more videos like this, don't forget to smash that like button, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications down below by clicking on that bell icon so you don't miss a single video, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.